Hello and welcome to Kingston Now. I'm Jimmy Buff. This week we'll get an autumn update on cool events happening in and around Kingston. We'll meet Manna Jo Green, community and environmental activist and candidate for the Ulster County Legislature, and we'll start with an update on the progress of turning Midtown Kingston into a hub for the area's rail trails with Tim Wiedemann. Hi, Tim.
Hi, how are you, Jimmy?
I'm all right. Now, you were here a little over just about 2 years ago.
Almost 2 years.
When this was more theory than it is now. What's the progress that's been made so far?
Lots of exciting stuff happening in Kingston. So the Kingston Land Trust has a rail trail committee, lots of volunteer members who are working to try to create that Midtown hub for the area's rail trails. We've been making the most progress on our proposed Kingston Point Rail Trail, which is a trail that connects from Midtown Kingston down to the roundabout on the former Ulster and Delaware Railroad corridor.
Now that stretch is about 1.5 miles long, right?
That's right.
And recently you took a group of community folks out for a walk along that stretch of soon-to-be rail trail, and I was one of the people who took that tour.
Thanks for coming.
And when you say 1.5 miles, it doesn't seem that long.
Right.
But when you're picking up 1,300-pound 30-foot-long pieces of rail, it takes some time.
Which we're doing some of. Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done on that. It's still got tracks and ties down on it. The last train, as far as I'm aware, ran in about 1976, I think as part of the bicentennial celebration, actually. But it's been inactive on this part of that rail line since then. Recently, the Trolley Museum of New York surrendered their lease on it. They had it as a lease through the city of Kingston, who owns the property. And now we're working on converting that 1.5 miles into a trail. And so there's lots to do. Started with brush clearing to try to clear out some of the brush, remove garbage that's accumulated there. And next phases as we move forward with it will be to actually bring up the tracks and the ties and put down a new surface so that we can have an active multi-use trail through that corridor.
Now the hub is actually going to be in Midtown Kingston. We started our tour behind Rondout Savings Bank on Broadway. Is there going to be some sort of like pavilion type design for that?
Well, so there's kind of preliminary conceptual design work that we had a grant from the Hudson River Valley Greenway and from the city of Kingston to look at this proposed corridor, the 1.5 miles. And they have some designs for a trailhead up on East Chester Street that would link from the trail coming up the hill from the Rondout into a kind of what's called a complete streets network in the city of Kingston in the Midtown area.
Now what does that mean?
That's kind of the technical term for an improved streetscape throughout Midtown. So building back up the sidewalks to make them more pedestrian friendly, putting either shared use bike lanes, so bike lanes with traffic, or dedicated bike lanes through the network of streets in Midtown Kingston to connect users that it would be on a trail, which is obviously separate from traffic, hopefully in a protected way up to other trails in this hub that we're envisioning in Kingston.
Well, let's talk about some of those other trails, because the section we were on recently, that 1.5 mile trail out to the Kingston Point, is just one spoke in that. What are the other trails?
So there's a number of trails that potentially could come into Kingston. The most soon to come is the Wallkill Valley Rail Trail, which now comes right to the city's line at Rockwell Lane, just south of the city off of 32. Lots of progress that the Wallkill Valley Land Trust, with the help of OSI and a bunch of others, have made to bring that trail up from Rosendale across the newly opened trestle, through the Williams Lake property and right to the city line. So we're really eager to figure out ways to connect to that rail trail from Midtown. The old Wallkill Valley rail bed came right in and connected with the active West Shore Railroad that goes right through the middle of Kingston. And so we're looking at ways to connect back up there.
But that rail bed doesn't really exist anymore, so you're
going
to have to.
Yeah. So this is the challenge, that even for the Ulster and Delaware Railroad, used to go right behind City Hall and the hospital, but it's been built over on that stretch. So in Midtown in particular, there's a real need to think of alternative ways to connect all this up. The rail beds just aren't there anymore.
Yeah, I'll tell you that Wallkill Valley Rail Trail opening up, when Williams Lake recently opened up their section, you got a stretch from the southern border of Kingston to Gardner of 24 miles.
It's amazing. And I think that's a preview of what's to come, hopefully much more of that here in Ulster County. The other trail that connects in Kingston is the proposed Catskill Mountain Rail Trail that heads up into the Catskill Mountains. And with that completed, coming from the Catskills down to Kingston, Kingston to New Paltz over through Highland and across the walkway over the Hudson, you start to see a really much bigger picture emerge. And for us, that's the exciting thing. My background is in economic development and planning, and this is really not just a hobbyist issue. This is a core economic development issue for our area, and we see it as that.
Well, you call it the Kingston Greenway.
Green Line.
Green Line, excuse me.
Yeah.
Green Line. And as I was walking, I was thinking, well, green is kind of the new blue for Kingston, because blue, of course, is the representation of IBM.
Yep.
And when IBM left 20 some odd years ago, it was a blow to the city.
Yes.
But you could really turn that around by making this Midtown hub active and connect to those places.
And I think that's great. I'm really glad to hear you kind of point that out. I hadn't thought of that analogy actually, but it's perfect because I think a lot of people poo-poo the idea of rail trails as economic development, and I can understand that. I wasn't always convinced of that, but I've done a lot of research over the last couple of years, and I think really what you start to see is that in the 21st century economy, jobs follow talent, and we need to create a community here with the quality of life that attracts people to our community, whether they're visitors or hopefully longer term purchase a house and end up settling here. And the Green Line is part of the vision to make that happen in Kingston and Ulster County.
Now you're going to take some folks out on other proposed portions of the rail trail and the hub in Kingston in coming weeks. Can you tell me about some of those?
Sure. So we had the one last week for the Hudson River Valley Ramble, so a shout out to them for that event. That was kind of a preview. We'll have some more, including one on September 27th. That'll be looking at the Uptown area, how to connect up to the proposed Catskill Mountain Rail Trail, the existing link out to the Hurley Rail Trail known as the O&W Link Trail, and how to weave that all into the fabric of Uptown. And then October 2nd, we'll have a tour in Midtown to look at how to connect up all these segments of our Green Line. And then on the 4th, we'll be back down on the Kingston Point Trail to explore that a little more and see how it connects down to the Rondout and potentially to the Hudson Landing Promenade project up on AVR's property along the Hudson.
And I can highly recommend to people to go out on these because not only are you outdoors and doing something wonderful, you're also getting a sense of the history of the city as you're walking through these sections.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, the city was a transportation hub. That's why these corridors exist, and it's really fun, I think, for everybody involved to explore that history a little more, come to know it a little better, and see some of the secret places in Kingston.
Well, keep up the good work, Tim.
Thanks, Jimmy.
You're watching Kingston Now. Next, we're going to meet Mana Jo Green, community and environmental activist and candidate for the Ulster County Legislature. Welcome back to Kingston Now. If they gave out knighthoods or sainted community and environmental activists, we'd most likely be introducing Mana Jo Green as both. You are a legendary community and environmental activist here in the Mid-Hudson region, and it's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you very much,
Now let me give a little credence to what I just said in the introduction. You're currently Clearwater's Environmental Action Director. You've been that since the year 2000. Before that, you were the Recycling Coordinator for the Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency. You have been a councilwoman for the town of Rosendale. You have the Mid-Hudson Regional Sustainability Consortium to your credit. You are a critical care nurse, and you are working towards a master's degree in environmental sciences at Bard College.
I have done many of those things, I confess.
How did you get started in activism overall and then in environmental activism? Because you have a really interesting backstory.
Well, I never really thought about it. I just kind of lived my life until recently. People kept saying to me, "How did you get like this?" And I thought back to my roots. I cut my teeth as an activist in the civil rights movement. As a teenager, I saw injustice and I responded to it. So I was living in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and at 17 I became the secretary of the Bridgeport chapter of the Congress of Racial Equality, which is an organization founded by James Farmer. And in order to expand our group, Dr. Farmer reached out to Dr. King and invited him to come to Bridgeport. And as the secretary, in those days we didn't have computers or internet or anything like that, or smartphones. I typed a letter on a typewriter to Dr. King to extend the invitation, and that was supported by a phone call from James Farmer, and he came to Bridgeport, and we had 600 people turn out to hear Dr. King, and it swelled our ranks. And most of the civil rights work that I did was in the North. I was not part of the very brave, courageous freedom riders and so forth. I helped organize rent strikes to improve living conditions in Bridgeport. And we grew to be a very powerful and effective group doing civil rights work in the North. And then I was invited to be a lobbyist for the Civil Rights Bill. And at 18, I went to Washington and I lobbied then Senator Jacob Javits, and I remember Abe Ribicoff, but he was a governor. I'm not sure if he ever went to Congress, but you know, the Connecticut and New England representatives who were generally supportive. But I got to also witness the vehement opposition to the Civil Rights Bill by the Southern Democrats. And it was really ugly. It was hostile. It was laced with bigotry, very open, clear, undeniable racism. And here I was 17 in a very diverse group of people organizing 17, 18, and 19 when the bill finally passed in the Senate. And I was literally there in the room. Yes,
and now here you are working with the Clearwater organization and doing a different kind of activism. It's environmental activism.
Yes.
And in your years in doing this, I'm sure you've seen progress. Where are we now? What do you think some of our big issues are, and what do you think we have to do to move forward?
Well, when Pete Seeger founded Clearwater, the Hudson River was like a sewer from one end to the other. It had actually been written off on some maps. We didn't even think of it as a river because it was so foul. Raw sewage was floating in the river. You could tell what color General Motors painted their cars that day because the effluent was directly discharged into the river. And so the first thing he did was build a boat, a big wooden sloop, and sail up and down the river and bring people to the river using music to as an attraction, and then getting people out on the river. And even though it was dirty and suspect at the time, he kept, as Dr. King kept the vision of his dream, Pete Seeger kept the vision of a clean river. And little by little, first was able to help get the Clean Water Act passed. They collected hundreds of thousands of signatures and took them down to Washington and held an impromptu concert in the halls of Congress. And that is believed to be the tipping point in the passage of the Clean Water Act.
You are going to run for the Ulster County Legislature. You're 0 for 1 in that, but as you pointed out to me before the interview started, Maurice Hinchy lost his first race too. So come November, good luck, because you would be an outstanding advocate and representative for the people of Ulster County and all things environmental. And we appreciate you coming by. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Kingston Now. Next, it's Jillian Fisher, the Coordinator of Tourism and Cultural Affairs of the City of Kingston, to give us a fall preview of some of the exciting events happening locally in the next few months. You're watching Kingston Now, and we're joined by Jillian Fisher, the Coordinator of Tourism and Cultural Affairs for the City of Kingston. Hi, Jillian.
Hey, Jimmy, how are you?
I think you might be our returning champion with this visit. You have some great things to tell us about coming up this fall.
I do.
In the City of Kingston and its environs. Tell us, start.
Oh my gosh, let's start in October since we are wrapping up September very quickly. So the first thing is the reenactment of the burning of Kingston, which is amazing, and that happens on October 4th, 5th, and 6th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And one of the great things about this is that just about every single event is free. One of the great free events that I know I can't wait to see you at is a period ball. And that's going to take place on Saturday night. It's a full costume ball.
I'll break out my powdered wig.
Well, I saw you just take it off a minute ago, so that shouldn't be hard. But yeah, and that's going to happen at City Hall on Saturday night, so that's cool. But there's going to be skirmishes throughout the streets, and just you can go down to Rotary Park and see where the British actually landed hundreds of years ago. Just a really fantastic event.
Indeed, and only happens every other year. So
every other year,
you got to catch it this year. You're going to have to wait 2.
And you don't want to do that
Nope.
because it's just amazing.
What else do we have?
The following weekend, for Columbus Day weekend, we have O Positive, which of course I'm sure you'll speak with Joe Conquera, amazing organizer of O Positive, and that's a fantastic Kingston-born festival that of course combines music, art, wellness all into one shot. That weekend we also have the Forsyth Nature Center Fall Festival, which is their big fundraiser, but it is so much fun. And I just want to take credit for this. I named a python last year. I'm just saying, it was me, and its name is Forsyth. It was a stretch. We also have the 6th annual Italian Festival, which is happening down on the Strand that weekend as well. So Columbus weekend, definitely. Mark your calendars. Don't go anywhere else but Kingston for Columbus
What do we have
weekend.
for Halloween in October?
For Halloween, one of the cool things that is happening, and I'm scanning my notes here because as you can see, I'm like Vanna White with the notes. The Trolley Museum is having the Fright Train. So if you come in costume, you actually get to ride the trolley for free. So,
And we've got Scarecrows in Frog Alley, too.
We do. That one is really cool. That's happening on October 9th, and that happened last year. And it's a Scarecrow competition, and it is sponsored by the Friends of Historic Kingston and the Junior League. And for those of you who don't know, Frog Alley is right across from Dysing's, diagonal from the Hoffman House Tavern. And there's a ruin there. It's one of the few ruins that remains in the city of Kingston. So it's an incredible spot and a great event.
Let's move into November. What do we have there?
Well, moving into November, UPAC, of course, has some amazing shows, and I can't go into all of them, but just briefly, they've got Merle Haggard, Elvis Costello, Vince Gill, just amazing. And yes, I have tickets to many of those concerts already because I was afraid they would be sold out.
And for our younger viewers, Chris Cornell of Soundgarden is going to be there as well.
See that if you're not an old fuddy-duddy like myself, thank you for pointing that out, Jimmy. Moving on. Also in November, we have the last day on November 16th of the Outdoor Farmers Market. So you want to make sure, of course in December it starts fresh in the Old Dutch Church as the indoor market, but the last day of the outdoor market is November 16th. The Junior League on November 28th is going to have their first annual turkey trot. So that is cool, and I think most people know that the Junior League is just going full throttle in raising money for Kingston Kinderland 2 up outside of Forsyth Park. One of the great things that's also happening in November, on November 30th, is Sinterklaas. Did you go to Sinterklaas last
I have.
year?
I've been the past couple of years, which is this really interesting tradition that starts on this side of the river
Right.
and crosses the Hudson on a tugboat and finishes up in Rhinebeck.
Right, exactly, the Dutch tradition of Sinterklaas. And there's this really cool lady called the Pocket Lady. I don't know if you've seen her, but in other settings it might be creepy. In Kingston it's not. But it's this woman who has this huge cape, and in it are pockets, and she has goodies, little trinkets for all the children. And I know my little one got some very cool trinkets. So Sinterklaas is very cool. That's happening. And of course, when that happens on November 30th, the Maritime Museum is going to be doing something in conjunction with it. The Trolley Museum will be doing something in conjunction with it. And I'm sensing perhaps we should move on to December.
We're getting there already.
I know, hard to believe since we're only in September right now. But one of the things that you don't want to miss is on December 6th, the Uptown Holiday Open House. Were you able to attend last year?
It's always a highlight. My little boy loves walking through the stores where all the merchants stay open late. They offer hot chocolate. They offer candy. There's Santa Claus for
horse rides.
Horse rides, yeah.
It's magical.
It really is.
Isn't it? It's wonderful. All of the museums, all of the shop owners, everybody opens their doors, and it's just truly a magical event. And the Kingston Uptown Business Association is raising money to do an incredible light spectacular this year. So if you think it looked magical last year, just wait until you go this year. And that, of course, is December 6th. The Kingston Farmers Winter Market begins on December 7th in the Old Dutch Church. Also on December 7th, the Trolley Museum has a Santa run. December 7th, the Junior League has their 13th annual Holly Berry Trail. And if you're not familiar with that, you get to go into some of the most exclusive properties and residences in Kingston. And that's a great fundraiser. On the 20th and 21st of December, the Old Dutch Church is presenting their 64th living nativity.
Which is just an amazing thing to see on the corner of Wall and Main Street. They have a manger with live animals, and they do a live play, and it really draws the crowds in from everywhere, and it shouldn't be missed.
It shouldn't, and although I understand that it is depicting a religious event, it's really non-denominational. I mean, everybody can truly go and just love this homespun. 64 years, my goodness. And then finally, December 31st, you don't want to miss the second annual Uptown Kingston New Year's Eve celebration. And last year, with just a little bit of fanfare, there were well over 1,000 people there. They do a ball drop. All of the shops are open, the restaurants. It is just an amazing event and not one that you want to miss this year.
Awesome events all. Jillian, thanks for stopping by. That's it for this week's show. Thanks to Tim Wiedemann. To find out more about Kingston's rail trails and how you can help, go to kingstonlandtrust.org. Thanks to Mana Joe Green, and thanks again to Jillian Fisher. And lastly, we want to say thanks and good luck to Eric Jacobs, one of our cameramen and our editor. Eric's moving on, and we wish him the best in his future endeavors. Remember, all of our previous shows are available on our YouTube channel, and you can find that link on our Facebook page. For Kingston Now, I'm Jimmy Buff. We'll see you next time.